Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Rabid Dog's House, where we like to discuss lost or forgotten horror gems with a little bit of bite. I'm your host, Justin Steele, and tonight we are going to discuss 1980s Dress to Kill. Directed by Brian De Palma and starring Angie Dickinson, Michael Caine, Nancy Allen, and Keith Gordon, Dress to Kill follows an unfulfilled housewife named Kate as she vents her frustrations to her psychologist. After leaving her appointment for a leisurely trip to the museum, Kate meets a mysterious man. Then, she meets an even more mysterious woman. Dress to Kill also follows the dangerous adventures of a call girl living a dual life and the assistance she gets from Kate's precocious son. This 1980 feature demonstrates all of Brian De Palma's strength and style, as well as his regularly appreciated homages to Alfred Hitchcock. Dress to Kill is definitely for the horror fan that loves a little mystery, a lot of atmosphere, and a cast of characters in over their head. Joining us tonight is our special guest star, Tyler Doupe, and of course, my fabulous co-host, Zena Dixon. And thanks again, everybody, for joining us for another episode of the Rabid Dog's House. We've got, as always, our real queen of horror, Zena Dixon, joining us tonight. How you doing tonight, Zena?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing very well, and also really excited because we have our special guest star, the managing editor of Wicked Horror, Tyler Doupe, is joining us tonight. How you doing, Tyler?
Doing great. Thank you to you both for having me. It's truly an honor.
Oh, we're so excited, especially for tonight's episode, because we're going to be talking about Brian De Palma, and I know that Tyler is a fan. I remember I wanted to do a Back to the 80s article on Dress to Kill, which is the film we're going to be talking about tonight, and I came to it way later in life, and I was watching Netflix one night. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is an amazing movie. I totally love it. It's totally something I should have seen like forever ago. So I was like, well, hey, I can use it for a Back to the 80s article. Started talking to Tyler about it, and he was like, well, if you like that and you like Brian De Palma, you got to watch Body Double. And, you know, because I know that was one of your favorite, it's one of your favorite movies too. And we just started talking about Brian De Palma. But so that's how I kind of came into Dress to Kill. And Zena, this was your first time watching it, correct?
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with Tyler to just ask, you know, how did you first come into it? And then we're going to do non-spoilery review real quick. And then I want to jump over to Zena to find out what she thought of it. Tyler, if you want to kick us off.
I think I saw it for the first time in like high school or college, and I didn't really get it. I mean, I grew up fairly sheltered, and I was almost sort of shocked by just how sexually explicit it is. I mean, it's basically a softcore porno with all of the giallo trappings and kind of a whodunit Hitchcockian inspired murder mystery plot. So it's one of my all-time favorite movies, but in all truthfulness, the first time that I saw it, I think I just wasn't quite ready for it. I mean, you know, I had no idea what a giallo was. I didn't really understand what it was paying homage and or tribute, and depending on who you ask, kind of ripping off. And
sure.
I just I liked it, but in no way was I really ready for it. I just didn't quite comprehend what it was comprised of and how truly exceptional it is. Every time I see it, I find new things to love about it. And I didn't watch it from start to finish for this, but I did scan through it and watch my favorite parts and take some notes. And, you know, I cannot put into words how much I love this movie. It's a top 10 all time for me.
Very nice. So Zena, for your first time coming through watching it, what did you think?
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie. When I first started watching it, the first 10 minutes, I'm just like, you know, because like Tyler said, it felt kind of like a soft porn, you know? And I mean, I was hoping that my father-in-law wouldn't walk by when I was watching it. But honestly, like, I really liked it a lot. I feel like it's there's so many twists, unexpected twists. And it's like, you know, a satisfying thriller. You know what I mean? Like, it's just sad. It didn't really leave anything untied or anything like that. And the acting it's amazing. I felt like it has like a really great way of holding the audience attention from the start to the finish, even if it is with naked bodies. But it's like
Sure.
it'll be worth it. Like I was really in just intrigued with it from the start to the finish, and kind of disappointed in myself because I've heard of it, would always see the poster, never watched it. So.
Yeah, no, it definitely could be called Undressed to Kill. I mean, that first, like, and I do want to say that the main things I hope we can talk about in this episode are the sort of what Tyler referenced, which were the sort of homages, the remakes or ripoffs, depending how you look at it, and the general performances and stuff, but also the actual thriller aspects of it.
Okay.
And in particular, I feel like Zena and I have talked about this on the show. I may have edited it out, folks. So this episode, we're going to really talk about it, I think. And that's our concept of remakes. I think Zena and I are both, we're not going to just watch a remake and be like, okay, it's great, but we're willing to give it a chance. Tyler, I don't know how you kind of feel about remakes in general.
I think that it's important to evaluate a film on its own merit. I think that with a remake, you certainly have to take the source material into account. That needs to be part of your evaluation. But I think first and foremost, you start off evaluating it as its own being, and then kind of come in and say, okay, how does it compare to the original? Is it a frame for frame remake? Is it a soft reboot, a hard reboot? Like, what kind of approach does it take, and is that effective? And I'm really not pro or anti. I just want to see good movies. And if someone has a great idea for reimagining something that's already been done, like Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead remake, I thought was brilliant. It took the core concept and really made the film its own.
Absolutely. Well, and to clarify for those watching, Dressed to Kill is not a remake, but it has a lot of homages to, Psycho, to, he does that a lot, Brian De Palma. Vertigo is kind of like Body Double, or Psycho with Dressed to Kill. The ending of the movie, from here on out, people, spoilers, sorry, but the end of the movie, it's almost like the end of his movie is referencing the slashers that were coming out at the time by being literally a shot-for-shot remake or rip-off, if you will, of Halloween. Like the first shot, or the last shot of the film when he's coming up to the house, you see the house, he literally goes to the right side of the house, looks in the window, and comes in, or the POV shot. And I feel like, even though it's not a remake, I feel like Dressed to Kill is the kind of film that most remakes try to be, where it's a different idea. It's taking the best of like Psycho, it's taking the best of Vertigo, and then making a new movie out of it, making a new experience out of it. And I feel like, Brian De Palma, he has his own definite style too, with the split screens or these very long shots where he's like going to take his time to tell the moment, to make that suspenseful atmosphere. But also, he's not afraid to like literally borrow something from somebody else. Some people might call it a ripoff, some call it an homage. But like he takes all this stuff, the great stuff, and then builds his own house with it. Anyway, I just kind of felt like when I was watching Dressed to Kill for the first time, I could see because I was familiar with Carrie, I had seen Raising Cain, I was familiar with that stuff, with those films that I love. I mean, and maybe because I came to Dressed to Kill so late, and I was able to then understand, like when I saw the shots, like the opening shot, I'm like, wow, Carrie. I mean, he's not afraid to steal from himself either. And I don't know, I feel like Dressed to Kill and Brian De Palma, he has what most people are expecting with the remake, that are willing to give it a chance. But Zena, knowing that I kind of looked at it like a remake, and knowing how you feel about it, do you agree or disagree that you would like to see remakes that are maybe kind of like that? I mean, Zena, I'm sure you've seen Psycho and Halloween. So now that you kind of see that, how he kind of plays with that, do you like that, or do you think he's more just ripping it off?
I think that he's paying homage. I wouldn't say that he's ripping it off. I didn't get that. I did note, like in the beginning of the movie, it reminded me of Carrie. It reminded me of Psycho. I just thought that he just, he was inspired.
And what about you, Tyler? Do you agree kind of with what I was saying, or did I go way too off in left field?
No, I don't necessarily think of it like a remake, but I agree with everything that you're saying. I think that De Palma is someone, perhaps not unlike Quentin Tarantino, who takes bits and pieces of things that have influenced him and then puts them together and sort of weaves his own story that takes the best of what worked for other people and then adds in his own element of genius. I just, early De Palma is really a sweet spot for me. If you guys haven't seen Blowout with John Travolta and Nancy Allen from the movie we're talking about today, Dressed to Kill.
And Carrie, yeah.
And Carrie, exactly. Blowout is pretty great. That's probably my third favorite De Palma film. It's kind of a distant third because I love Body Double and Dressed to Kill more than I could really put into words. But Blowout is a great movie, and it's a lot of fun, and it's very De Palma-esque.
Yeah, I do like Blowout. I might have to go back and visit again. I bought it on DVD right after I watched Dressed to Kill. Like I said, you and I kind of talked about it, like Body Double, and I loved Body Double. I need to watch that again soon because it's been a hot minute. Zena, have you seen Body Double?
I have not.
Okay.
I know I'm not in the club.
For sure. It's really interesting. And I feel like Dressed to Kill is the inspiration for like the end of Body Double. And this isn't a spoiler, Zena, but the concept is sort of there's a moment in the film that's literally showing how a famous actress can be in a nude scene, but you're not you think it's the same woman, even though when you see them, you realize they're completely two different women. But anyway, I feel like Dressed to Kill, because Angie Dickinson did some of her nude scenes, but also had a body double come in for it. Sorry, just random trivia. But I really I like that he takes his ideas. He takes ideas that he comes with, I feel like, in one movie and then plays them in the next. Now, I do want to talk about too, and Zena, I know that you're a big fan of Carrie, correct?
Yes.
Brian De Palma. Okay. Now, he is quoted as saying that that he thinks, and again, folks, spoilers from here on out, don't be surprised, but the scene in the elevator, I want to know what you thought of it, Zena and Tyler, but Zena, being a big fan of Carrie, he said, Brian De Palma, he's been quoted as saying that he thinks the elevator scene is the most well-constructed scene that he's done. Moment, and I love that scene. I think it's amazing and great and fantastic, but I mean, I really love the sequence in Carrie, the whole prom, the setup, once it goes into the slow motion leading to the rope up to the pail with blood in it, coming down to not Chris, Chris under there, Nancy Allen's character, all of that, though, I feel like that's actually his better moment in my opinion. But now that being such a fan of Carrie versus the elevator scene, which one do you think was constructed better, or neither, both great? What do you think?
I have to go with, because of how I feel about Carrie, but like you, I was going to talk about the elevator scene, because I love the fact how it was filmed. That's terrifying. Right. You're in the elevator with someone, and I love that they don't show these really close-ups. They kind of keep a distance between the two. That makes sense. But I really like that one.
What about you, Tyler? Do you love the elevator scene, and which one do you think is better? Or what's your favorite? It doesn't have to be Carrie. Or do you think the Carrie one was better, or the elevator, or do you have a different?
Between those two, just personal preference, I'm a way, 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 way bigger fan of Dressed to Kill and Body Double than I am of Carrie. I really enjoy Carrie. I think it's a great movie. I think it's a great adaptation. I think it's brilliant. But it's also incredibly dark, and I kind of feel wrecked after watching her entire high school basically massacred, and the ending scene with her mother. It's a lot to take, whereas Dressed to Kill and Body Double are a little lighter. Sure. So just in terms of personal preference, want to pop on a movie that I'm really going to enjoy watching, Dressed to Kill is probably more my bag. As far as the two scenes compared back to back, I think they're both artistically beautiful, and I don't know. I almost don't feel qualified to speak on which one is better. I think they're both incredible, and I love them both for different reasons. In terms of which movie do I prefer, I'm definitely on the side of Dressed to Kill.
For sure. I mean, I think it comes down to what Zena said earlier about it being like a great thriller, how Dressed to Kill is more of a lighter, I don't want to say light, but more of a thriller, whereas Carrie is more of a horror film.
Mm-hmm.
And which we obviously love to talk about both of those on this show. I mean, almost every other film we review could technically be a psychological thriller, as Zena and I always talk about. But I mean, it is true. You might have more of a taste for the headiness of Carrie versus the sort of I don't know if I want to use the word sexy quality, but Dressed to Kill definitely goes more for that, the sort of sex appeal. And I'm hoping that'll be a sort of transition where we can still talk a little bit about Carrie, but also I think Angie Dickinson's great in this. I love Michael Caine in it. Keith Gordon is great. But what I watched Dressed to Kill for, and what was like a little fun spark within me, was when Nancy Allen came out, who played Chris in Carrie. But her performance in Dressed to Kill, I just love it. I love that she's sort of like this stockbroker. And I mean, obviously the film does a lot with duality, and it's about looking at who's the inner person versus the external person. But like Nancy Allen, I just loved her character in this because I really did love her performance in Carrie. I also really liked her in Poltergeist 3 and the RoboCop movies, etc. But Zena, what did you think, being a fan of Carrie, seeing Nancy Allen in this, and did you like the performances in general, and specifically Nancy Allen, because she's my favorite part about this, and I really want to know specifically about her.
Well, in general, I really love the performances. I actually really liked Keith Gordon's character like the most. He's just so awesome, and I was just like, oh, Arnie, because from Christine.
Yes.
But I really like Nancy Allen's character because it was unexpected. Like her lifestyle. I thought that she was just a regular woman, but she has like a little secret, and she's not afraid to throw around her sex appeal. And you shouldn't look down on her about it. She's not. She's very happy with her life. But I like her character. I like that she's spunky and she's full of energy, and she's willing to fight back. Yeah, so she's someone I was really excited to see, because I feel like it's different from her character on Carrie.
I would love to kind of piggyback off of what Zena is saying, and I jotted down some notes about this. I think that Nancy Allen is really capable. She's in charge of her sexuality. She's empowered. She's in an industry where exploitation is very, very common, but she's fully in control. I would like to think, this is not something I've spent a lot of time doing research on, but I would like to think that De Palma has always kind of had a female positive, pro-sex approach to his characters. Like if you remember in Body Double, Melanie Griffith is like, this is what I'll do, this is what I won't do, don't tell me what I'm going to do, don't tell me my business, and then Nancy Allen is very much kind of the same way as Liz in this film. She is, she's in charge, she makes her own way. She's got an exit strategy. And not only that, I mean, Angie Dickinson is, just kind of loud and proud, ringing the devil's doorbell, and, no shame, and I think that's kind of awesome. I mean, there's just been so much shame around female sexuality for so long. And, maybe he doesn't do it to present women in a positive light. I mean, I can't speak to his intentions, but it at least seems to me like he's trying, or was trying in his early work, to sort of destigmatize sex work and to show that women could be powerful and in control and still sexual beings. And I would like to think that that's what he's going for. And there does seem to be a certain theme of it throughout his earlier work.
Oh, absolutely agreed. Absolutely. When you started saying that about the sexuality and stuff, I did think of Melanie Griffith's character in Body Double. And no spoilers, but she works in the pornography business, but like she is not letting herself get exploited at all. She is very much in charge, makes the decisions. So I agree with like that with Nancy Allen's character too, that she's willing to also do just to everything you said, yes, Tyler, but also she is willing to do the right thing. She doesn't take off running. She stays, she almost to her own like death or pain or suffering is willing to like reach into that elevator and is willing to like just figure out this crime. She's not like, oh, I'm going to be the hero and be all insufferable about it, but she's kind of like, always guided by some sort of moral compass, I would say. Now, before the elevator scene, I do want to talk also about the museum scene. I just feel like moments that Brian De Palma did not shy away from in the early 80s. I don't know that there are many films or movies or shows that could really do anything like that now, where it has to constantly be the sort of quick cuts and jump here and do this, whereas Brian De Palma certainly did not shy away from letting a scene unfold, and it worked like an opera. Like it's sort of like a performance, and it starts on one note and it goes through all this whole crescendo leading all the way to the end where like she finally, she has her tryst, she finds out this guy might have an STD. She like, we think that's going to be sort of like the horror, and then we're like, oh no, left turn, here we go. But what do you guys think about moments like that in film? Like the closest I can think of to a more contemporary thing would have been like the latest season of Twin Peaks that came out in 2017. I feel like David Lynch doesn't really shy away from that. If he wants the scene to be quick, it's going to be quick. If he wants it to go on for a full episode of craziness, he's going to let it go on for a full episode of craziness. But like, do you guys like stuff like that? Do you prefer the sort of quick cuts and in general, the museum scene? What did you guys think? Zena, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I really like that shot. I knew that it was just like a long take. And I know I was talking about like naked bodies earlier, but this was the scene I felt that really like hooked me in, you know, especially because it's just kind of like, okay, it was like a first person and all you hear are her loud hills, you know. It was just such a weird scene because clearly it's like she wants the attention of this mysterious man. And, you know, as the viewer, you're just intrigued. You can't help but just keep, watching on the edge of your seat. So, and then the music, who did the music? Because the music was just like, it just fit perfectly.
I want to say it's Pino Donaggio, but I could be wrong about that.
I think you're right. So yeah, but no, I really like that scene. I really liked it a lot. I don't see that done too often anymore with a lot of things that's coming out, nowadays. But it worked, and that's what I mean. I feel like he's paying homage, Yeah. So it worked. It added to it. It added that, obviously it's a thriller, so it added that thrill to it.
Absolutely. What about you, Tyler?
What I find I love that scene. I love pretty much every scene in that movie, but I think what I love about that scene is that it leaves a lot open for interpretation. Is she playing hard to get? Is she actually kind of consciously rethinking and saying, no, I can't do this. Yes, I can. No, I can't. What do you guys think is kind of driving her? I always kind of waffle back and forth between she's playing hard to get and trying to be kind of sexy and mysterious, and then also wonder, like, does she feel guilty because she has a husband at home that she isn't crazy in love with anymore, but she still has someone to whom she is being dishonest. So that always, I'm just always curious what motivation was really driving her in that scene.
I think what she was saying to the psychologist before, I think she's gotten her mind in this like sort of stir of emotions. I believe it was Angie Dickinson who said in the original script for Dress to Kill, that scene was originally supposed to be like sprinkled with voiceover. And so she kind of worked the scene literally. I've never read it, so I don't know the exact words, but I know my own interpretation is that, I think that she wants to kind of keep pushing the envelope, like, oh, can I get away with this? Or she wants to know, does this guy find me attractive? But then it's kind of like, oh no, he might find me attractive. What do I do? And then it just kind of keeps playing. And then it's kind of like, oh, I have to be, above him and not do it. And then like, oh, but he was just trying to give me his glove. Shit, So it kind of keeps like, it's a whole thing of emotions. But what about you, Zena? I mean, do you agree, or do you have like a different sort of interpretation?
Yours make a whole lot of sense than what I was thinking.
Oh no, I want to know though what you're thinking.
I just thought that at first she was just, I think that she wanted to get attention from him. And then when he was actually giving her attention, it was just kind of like she changed her mind. But she really did want back her glove,
Oh, yeah,
And so I think that, but I'm thinking to myself, you threw the glove already. Like you threw it on the ground and then you went to go get it. Then he pulls you in and you're just like, oh yeah. Like, wait, what? Like, a normal person like wouldn't just do that. So it's like I guess kind of like what you said, Tyler, and well, Tyler and
J-Dog.
J-Dog and you, Justin, but it's just kind of like, she just seems more lonely, and I think that she kind of liked the fact that
Yeah.
she was getting attention.
Yeah.
So once I keep on using the word thrill, but it seemed like it was a thrill for her, to chase him
Absolutely. Oh, I
around.
1,000% agree. And I will say, just so I don't forget, because I don't know there's a lot of discussion we can have about it, but I think my favorite little moment from the film, though, is right after the museum, right before she gets in the cab, where there's this sort of long camera shot, and you see the killer, or this mysterious woman. The first time I watched it, I'm glad I didn't look away, because if you blink, you're not going to see it. But it was the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, that's kind of a weird woman standing there. Okay, maybe it's just De Palma being like artsy, and then like 10 minutes later, you're going to see her again, and you're like, I was stunned. But anyway, I just that's one of my favorite little moments. I love things like that in film, just those little moments and
I
stuff.
wanted to talk about Peter because I really like his character. He was just so resourceful. He was willing to put himself out there to find out what happened to his mother. I love his relationship with Liz. I felt like they make like such a really great team, and it was just cool. And it wasn't like inappropriate. You know what I mean? Like he really was about finding out who this person was, and just staying focused like that. Like I loved his performance in it, and it was just great to see him in a different kind of role.
Just to add on to that, I felt like they were kind of like two kind of souls that weren't used to, they were very, introverted, or she's extroverted, he's introverted, but they're very like on their own for the most part. And they were kind of like for the first time having to rely on somebody else, and they were lucky to find each other. Right. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I actually put some things in my notes about that. I love the kind of unconventional relationship between Peter and Liz. Their bond makes both of their characters more dynamic. And like Zena said, it's, not really inappropriate, but because it is De Palma, it is tinged with, I think, just a touch of sexual tension. Like there's this almost like, wait, did she just kind of flirt with him a little bit? But it makes both of their characters so much more endearing, because I think their relationship is very telling. Like Justin was saying, it tells us a lot about who they are, and it also kind of fleshes them out and helps the audience warm up to them.
Absolutely. I mean, overall, like I said, I came to it later, and I'm glad I did, because I had a little bit of like knowledge going into it about Brian De Palma's Sisters too. Was a movie that I remember seeing and enjoying by him. Carrie, though, I'd seen 1,000 times. So just seeing the kind of opening scene, it's a woman very vulnerable. And I mean, I don't think you can be any more vulnerable than naked, and then leading to like this very interesting mystery and thrilling story. And I feel like at the time, it was 1980, you're dealing with some very serious issues. And I feel like Brian De Palma was very respectful to like the sort of idea of transsexualism, or even the prostitution, or the woman who is struggling in her marriage. Hello, Kitty. I feel like he was really respectful. I don't think he was like overtly preachy, trying to make a point. I feel like for where it was in 1980, though, I think it's a surprising movie. I know that some people, similarly to like Silence of the Lambs, there's definitely that crowd of people, and I get it, I really do, that are like, oh, you can't have this sort of imagery in film. Like, you can't say that a transgendered person or transsexual person is going to be a killer. But like the whole point of the film, both of them, in my opinion, was that they're saying it's two separate ideas. They're saying, no, this guy's not really a transsexual because he's crazy, as opposed to like, oh, this person's crazy because they're a transsexual. I really respected that, especially in 1980. I don't know. Do you guys disagree though, or do what do you guys think on that sort of heavy topic?
I do not disagree. I think that anything over time is going to appear dated, and it does a bit, but I think for its time it was incredibly progressive, A. And B, I don't think you can say a transsexual person can't be a killer. transsexual person is a person, and a person
Correct.
can be,
Yes, even
and
better.
a person can be a killer. I don't think that you should make your filmic career all about depicting transgender individuals as only being killers. But I think that, the
Correct.
argument to say, oh, Bobby can't be the killer because she's transgender is almost kind of the opposite of inclusivity. And I don't personally think that she's depicted like as a deviant. I just think she's very troubled. And I think that the film goes into depicting why she is troubled and the internal struggle that's going on between her two very separate personalities. I think that for the time, it's surprisingly respectful. And that's another thing that I think is common in giallo films. Argento had a lot of gay characters that weren't gay so much to further the plot. They were just gay because they were gay. Right. And, they may have been caricatures to some extent, but for the time, just having a gay character in your film that wasn't gay to serve any purpose other than they just happen to be gay. It's a private investigator who happens to be gay, or it's a scientist who happens to be gay, or he dealt with those themes a lot, and I feel like De Palma deals with it in a similarly straightforward and non-negative fashion, at least given the time frame in which the film was made.
I agree with you, Tyler. I feel like it was done respectfully. It just seemed like, yes, he also did have other issues going on with him. It seemed, because it's obviously he was living as a doctor, right? Where it was just kind of like he's sitting there listening to people's problems, but then there's just a completely different person on the other side that comes out when they feel a certain way. He needs counseling, I feel. I've always felt. But sure. No, I feel like I thought it was done, tastefully. And I don't know if you guys ever heard anything, because I was reading up on it, and I've heard like there were some people who were just like really offended with his character. And I'm not trying to dismiss their feelings.
For sure.
I just didn't understand it.
For sure. I don't remember the specifics. I know that I've read something or heard something in the past years since I've seen it. But yeah, I feel like it's, I can definitely see where it could lead down a problematic road. But again, I feel like De Palma very much took it as like both of what Tyler and I said, that it wasn't just incidental, or it could be looked at in multiple ways. Like it could be he's a killer because he's human, and it's inclusive, but also it's kind of like he couldn't take the next step because he had these mental issues, and therefore isn't a pure transsexual, or at least, and that was definitely the theme in Silence of the Lambs, where Buffalo Bill he couldn't get past the first step because of his mental issues. And it's basically saying you have to be cleared mentally to become the other, and so I think it was handled very well. Again, though, it can be very dangerous. Again, we could have had the same issue on our episode of Ticked Off Trannies with Knives, but again, I feel like they all understood the movie they were in and decided, no, we can have fun, again, because we're people and we want to have fun with this. We want to be a part of this. And I don't know, I appreciate it for one. Again, there's definitely times where, if they had tried to make it into it was less about making it into a stereotypical role and almost more like Brian De Palma came into it with like, I don't have a lot of information about this, so I almost want to learn more about it so that we can have more information before we make decisions, which is how I think like people should, react in general. Let's have information before we just start like talking about things and assuming. But I mean, that's my response to that.
Definitely. I think if it were made today, just like anything, it would be different. But I think for the time in which it was made, I genuinely believe his aim was to try to be respectful. And like Justin said, there wasn't a lot of widely available information about transgender individuals. There was no, internet as we know it now at that time. We just didn't have the same tools and resources and information at our fingertips. So I think based on probably what he knew of gender identity, my honest opinion is that, he did his best, and, almost anything can be viewed as kind of insulting in hindsight as we grow and evolve and learn more and become better people and hopefully better as a society. But I think for 1980 that, to me personally, I can't speak for anyone else. To me, I don't take offense to it. I don't believe that his intentions were impure.
Agreed. I also think, I think you made an interesting point, because it is a product of its time. I think it holds up very well, but it also was sort of, and maybe this will bring us kind of full circle, about Brian De Palma's sort of, I don't know, natural inclination to pay homage to Alfred Hitchcock so much, because he obviously has a lot of respect for him and understands it. But, there's so many great selections to choose from Alfred Hitchcock, but I think, like most people, if it's not their favorite, they've definitely heard of Psycho, and in it you have a character. It's kind of like Alfred Hitchcock used information he had at the time to kind of come up with Norman Bates's sort of outlet, and this was Brian De Palma 20 years later saying, like, okay, well, we know a little bit more information now. I mean, he even has this sort of, I think the clip from Phil Donahue, who is great in it, who is trying to be totally respectful. Like, I love Phil Donahue, but anyway, he's in it really interviewing somebody, like a real person, not just an actor. And so it is, again, it's like, okay, that's where 20 years later. And then, so now if it was remade or updating, I'm sure it would have a little bit more fluidity than it did then, but I still think it's great. And I love the sort of homages, kind of separating from that specific topic. But like, I do like, again, just seeing what Brian De Palma can do. Like I said, love it or hate it, like the remake of Halloween, that was Rob Zombie's movie. Whether that's your taste or not, fine, great, however you feel about it. But it was definitely, he was taking his own spin on it. And that's kind of what Brian De Palma does in De Palma way. He takes those ideas of duality or whatever it might be, like, but it's De Palma's style. It's his way of looking at it. And I just think, like, Dressed to Kill is that sort of perfect balance between, like, he had done Sisters, Carrie, and then was like then there's Dressed to Kill, which I think is sort of his pinnacle, leading then to Body Double, and then later on, like, Raising Cain, which I also really loved, but definitely different times.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, if you were like me and you haven't checked out this movie yet, I highly recommend that you give it a watch. I watched it on Amazon. So it's streaming on Amazon. You can rent it on Amazon. But yeah, I felt that it was a very memorable movie, especially the leading woman in it. She's a great heroine. So yeah, that's it for me though.
Any final thoughts from you, Tyler? Obviously, you recommend it.
Definitely recommend it, and I love the way that it's the closest we'll probably ever be to an American-made giallo. I mean, save for maybe like The Editor or something that really kind of lampoons the giallo subgenre. But this really embraced all the trappings, from the black gloves to the killer who is struggling with issues of sexual dysfunction or sexual identity. The kind of dreamy Pino Donaggio score. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but we'll just assume for today's purposes that that's correct.
For sure.
And it just has so many hallmarks of a giallo, but adapted with love and respect for the genre, and I appreciate that so much about it.
Yeah, I love its perfect balance too of dealing with sort of heavy issues, but then ultimately being an entertaining ride. You don't feel like bombarded, you feel like you were entertained in the end. Thanks everybody for joining us for another episode of the Rabid Dog's House. What are some of your favorite Brian De Palma movies? Are you more of a fan of Carrie, Body Double, or maybe our Dressed to Kill? Thank you so much, Tyler Doupe, for joining us tonight. You can find Tyler over at Wicked Horror or contributing at Dread Central. Obviously, we've got the Real Queen of Horror, Zena Dixon, who you can find over at Wicked Horror or under realqueenofhorror.com or on YouTube under her Real Queen of Horror moniker. And I'm Justin Steele. You can find me at Wicked Horror, Hormel and Pop Culture, or on Twitter at Wicked Horror Justin. Thanks for joining me, guys. I had a blast talking about Dressed to Kill.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye.